16 past the hour now. Joe Biden now hitting the current strategy on Iran, tweeting this. Instead of using his statement today to lay out a coherent strategy on Iran, Donald Trump used it to mislead the country. On the Obama-Biden record, he's been president for 3 years. It's time he stops blaming President Obama for his failures. Dan Henninger, deputy editor of Wall Street Journal, with me now. Dan, how you doing? Good morning to you. We're only in this mess because Donald Trump pulled out of the Iran deal. To that you say what?
Well, I think, Joe Biden keeps wrapping himself in Barack Obama as something of a security blanket. And eventually he's going to have to start proposing his own candidacy rather than Obama's candidacy. And I think there may be a political reason for this. Joe Biden is currently running in the primaries. He has a lot of support from black Democrats. He has to win the South Carolina primary. We get that. But there's a point beyond which Joe Biden has to be running his own campaign and engage with President Trump on the substance of what is going on in Iran. And I don't think there's any question that the Iranians used the money from the Iran deal that the Obama administration sent them to buy and develop these missiles, and also the destabilization that has been going on in the Middle East since then came in the wake of the Iran nuclear deal. So Joe Biden at some point is going to have to talk about what President Trump is actually doing. And it's clearly not the case as of yesterday that there is no plan. The president addressed the nation. He said he's willing to talk to the Iranians. Their foreign minister Zarif himself responded that the missiles that they had sent over there was a proportionate response. So it looks like we are at the brink here of a possibility of a negotiation. That is a strategy, and Joe Biden's got to start talking about that.
If it is a general election campaign and it's Trump versus Biden, this is a clear difference of opinion now on foreign policy. You write this today, Wall Street Journal. Dan Henninger says Joe Biden's deterrence policy stopped Trump. Democratic Party's national security strategy is where it was in 1972, a year their candidate lost big. Here's the line I picked out. A byproduct of Mr. Trump's maddening persona is that it causes his opponents to lose their ability to think straight about anything. Why'd you write that?
I wrote that because I was struck, as was former Democratic Senator Joe Lieberman, who wrote on the editorial page this week, that the Democrats are running the risk as looking as though they simply will not any longer use force in foreign affairs. And I was reminded of the fact that years ago there used to be national security Democrats like Joe Lieberman or Sam Nunn who understood the idea of having a credible deterrent force, which means the willingness to use military force against provocations by adversaries. In the Cold War, it was the Soviet Union. Now it is Iran. And the response of the Democrats to the killing of Soleimani seemed to fall into two paths of proposition. One, that we were on the brink of war, and the only alternative to that was, as Joe Biden said Tuesday, only diplomacy. In other words, there's no middle way in their view anymore. And this struck me as being basically the kind of anti-war proposition that Senator George McGovern made in 1972 when his campaign got completely wiped out by Richard Nixon in that November election.
You're saying two things there. The moderate Democratic position, no more, is the headline.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
And we can't even see what it is. I mean, moderates like Joe Biden, Amy Klobuchar seem to be saying that they are unwilling to use force. And I think the defining event was in 2012, remember, when Barack Obama drew the red line in the sand against Assad's use of chemical weapons in Syria and then did nothing when Assad used those chemical weapons. So that's a proposition of diplomacy only. And I think the Democrats are very vulnerable by showing that they are unwilling to use a credible deterrent force, as I believe the president just did by killing Soleimani.
Nixon blew out McGovern in 1972.
Yeah.
Is that a prediction?
I think we could be heading in that direction unless the Democrats, in the face of the national security problems we're seeing right now, begin to act as though they could be entrusted with the nation's security.
Dan Henninger, thank you. Interesting piece, Wall Street Journal. Nice to see you.
Good to be with you, Bill.